workshop hosted by Kevin. So a little brief introduction about Kevin. Kevin's a lecturer teaching English for academic, specific, and professional purpose at the Hong Kong University. He's also the founder of NCA Education Group Limited that specializes in guiding people through job search process, consulting people as behavioral consultant, and helping with immigration process. He loves public speaking in Toastmasters under University Productions, and also he also runs like a foodie account on Instagram. So now let's invite Kevin on stage and tell us about double fear, double sharing. Thank you.
Start off with a little bit of a history of why it's actually called double fear and double sharing altogether as well. So there was this day when Irene suddenly texted me and said, I want you to do this, but I also want you to do that. And I was like, how in the world will you be able to combine a workshop with table topics and evaluation at the same time? She also gave me a challenge and said, and I don't want the normal stuff. You know those things that have been shared throughout? That's why I was like, it's difficult, but I'll try. And that's the reason why today I'm going to go for you with you. So, a double fear, something that we always fear when it comes to public speaking. And for me, it will always be table topics. Even though I won the contest, I still hate the contest. It's something that I'd rather not do, and it's something that I will always look down every time someone says, is there a volunteer? Because I just hate it. And that is basically a fact. And evaluation is also something that sometimes I have a fear of speaking too long. And that is also the thing. And the double sharing comes with you today is because at the end of the day, I am going to share with you something that is very personal to me and something that I always use for myself, and that is for sure. Now, let's move on before we talk about a little bit about it all together. I have Eric here who has been a constant winner of both contests as well. You're more than qualified. Jerry, just a little bit, a very simple question altogether. Let's start with table topics. What's your take or what's your style when it comes to table topics?
Freestyle.
And what does it mean by freestyle?
Whatever pop in my mind and then you just answer the question. Don't think too much because I tried before. Don't think too much. You will be more tense and cannot answer, and also lost the quick interest.
Okay, so that will be on table topics. Debbie, what do you have to say? Instead of me sharing it, of course I'm going to have your sharing as well.
Just, what I try to remember is this. Opening content CTA. So when I say table topics, the first thing is, okay, how do I open? What's my content? What's my CTA? If the problem is if I don't know the content, then I get lost. But that's what comes to mind.
Okay, good, thank you. Stephen, let's move on to evaluation first because I need to get these questions out of the way first then. When it comes to evaluation, what's your style?
Find out what I like from the speaker and how is that, the message, that message that touched me, that I can take away. So if there is something that I take away, then I'll just tell everybody, this is the one, if you feel safe. Something like that.
All right, good. And the last person then maybe Holly? Evaluation. What's your style when it comes to evaluation?
The style of evaluation, I will point out something that the person can improve, which is more constructive. So, because people actually learn from it. I'm not saying negative comment, but yeah, and also the burger style is good. So, I think like two good point and one bad point and one good point last. The best point the last.
Okay, good. So we all know those styles, right? And every one of us basically we personalized it to how we want it to be. I have my own style, and today I'm going to share with you the styles that I normally take, depending on where I am at the first place as well. Now, The style that I'm sharing with you basically is very personal and there is something that I will always use when it comes to generally contests. And at the same time, I've of course used it as well when it comes to non-contest days, right? When it comes to table topics, there are two ways for you to go into. You can either use the logical approach or you can actually use the narrative approach. When you're doing a contest, do not use the logical approach. You will never go far. You have to use the narrative approach. As a Toastmaster, we all understand. However, you need to learn the logical approach as well. When you go for a job interview, you can't just tell stories. You sometimes have to give points. When it comes to giving, say for example, a question from your client, you have to give facts. That's when the logical approach will come in. I use logical approach a lot when I do my normal table topics. So that's a huge difference altogether. The logical approach that I basically use will be used in the evaluation as well, because I love to teach my students this when they're doing writing. When it comes to their own writing a paragraph altogether, I always ask them to use P. Yes, I know it's one of the worst acronyms in the entire world, but generally it is P. Holly will know what is P because I shared with the students before. And at the same time, it's something that I always like to use. It's easy, everybody pees. Okay, it's not really good, but never mind. You start with the point, generally. When it comes to a logical approach, you have 2 minutes. So you know the rules. You start off with something nice, and then you have your first point, your second point, and also then your conclusion. I'm not going to go through that framework with you. But I am going to tell you how are you going to actually use the logical approach to make it work for you. When our brain basically works all together, it's always easy to make the point first. Tell me your point. Once you have the point, that's when you use the 2 E's. The E's basically, they are interchangeable, depending on your style and depending on, say for example, like me, my mood. Sometimes I will go with the example first. Sometimes if I don't like it, I will go with the explanation first. Depending on how you want it to go about it. You give your point, you explain your rationale why, and you give your example. Your example can be facts, if you can wrangle some facts into your table topics, which is hard, right? But if you can't, then it's fine. It's a table topic. Nobody will blame you for not bringing facts in. But at least give me the rationale behind it, and at the same time show to me why. And that's the reason why when it comes to public speaking, we show, we don't tell. And the example is basically to show us how it is supposed to be done. Right? So that will be the logical approach when it comes to it. So point 1, point 2, that's it. By the time you're done with all the P's, you don't have enough points. You don't have enough time to go through the 3rd point altogether, because you only have 2 minutes in total. That will be the table topics. So say for example, I give you a table topics now called geared up. Then that will be the topics for today itself, right? Then what will be the logical approach that you want to do? You can do all sorts of things. Say for example, oh, I want to go through the future past or past future. I want to go to the problem solution. I leave it up to you. Those are basically things that you can basically use. But always remember the P to fit in the points. Now let's move on to something that I've completely forgotten to mention first. Before you do your table topics, my personal style is completely different from Debbie's style. Debbie said, I will look at the introduction. I like to do the other way around. I like to look at the conclusion. What kind of message do I want to send to the audience? That is important, because once I know that is the message that I want to send, my content will then have to be within that framework. Introduction, it's okay. Even if you say, oh, I don't know what to say, it's still an introduction. Right? So that is an introduction. Introduction is the easiest. It doesn't have to link up to whatever it is, but of course if you can, that would be great. But as a great speaker, you know this as well. You always start with a bang, you end with a bang. So therefore your introduction and your conclusion, in a way, will have to echo each other. And that's why it's easier to move it when you have the conclusion, right? So once you have the conclusion, then you know how to drive the car because you have a destination to go to. And that's when you use this style or this style. Let's talk about the narrative style. The narrative style, everybody knows how to do it. We have to go back to storytelling 101. Who basically will never remember, who will basically forget our dear little mountain? Right? You start off with the introduction, then you move on to the rising action, then you have the climax, and then at the same time, you basically have everything. Right? But at the same time as well, you sometimes say, oh, then do I have to really worry about making sure that all my characters will come out first, set up the background? If you can, then I'll basically ask you to be my master. It's very hard. When it comes to narrative altogether as well, don't worry so much about it. It's just like what we say in English, or what we say in Cantonese, it's just to blow water. It's fine, right? As long as the narrative or the mountain is there, that should be okay. When you are doing your contest though, there is something you have to make sure you reach regardless. What is the half mark of a table topics? What card will come out most of the time? The green card. Once you see the green card, regardless, this will have to come in. When it comes to the green card, you cannot spend your time talking about the rising action already. You have to start gearing your way towards the climax. If not, you will reach an anticlimax. And how many of us basically love movies with anticlimax? None of us, right? So generally, when you see the green card being flashed altogether, that's when you realize that you have to really start moving towards. If you are still moving in your introduction, that's when you have to really rush everything through already. To make sure by the yellow card, your climax is there. Why? It's because once the red card is there, you only have 30 seconds to wrap up, and that will not be enough. Most of the time, even when it comes to the yellow card, you will still be going around the climax, which is a bit dangerous altogether. That's why one thing for sure when it comes to contests that you have to remember when it comes to narrative is generally to reach the climax. Regardless, even if it is not contesting, your normal storytelling mode altogether, you might want to consider doing that. Now, when it comes to normal networking with a friend, you might then say, oh, I then have a lot of time. Either way, unless you want to bore that person to death, you can continue with your grandfather's stories, moving to another direction, before you reach your climax. But either way, regardless of whatever it is, this is still a very good storytelling techniques that you can actually use, regardless, right? But bear in mind, whatever story that you are telling, it must tie with the conclusion. If you're doing contests, always have stories to tell. If you're doing networking with your friends, always have stories to tell. I have my best friend who could basically tell me the F story for like the 10th time in any parties that we're in together with him. So it's me, him, and a few more people. It will be the same story. Would I be bored of it? Yeah, I sometimes can, but then the other person doesn't know a single thing about it. So that's when I realize whenever I hang out with them, you don't need a lot of stories, but you need to have your stories ready. Because once you are out, you need to network, your stories need to be there. So that it will be easy for you to bring them out and with the whole thing all together, right? And that basically will come into it. So you basically need to know the thing. Regardless, whatever it is, table topics, always remember, conclusion is the key. Why? Because in any public speaking that we're doing, always this question will pop up. Why do I even want to listen to you? you're just wasting my 2 minutes time without telling me what you want, right? And that generally, regardless, this one or this one, remember, just move on to it, right? Now that we basically know how or what approach that you want to do when it comes to your table topics, I'm going to share with you a little bit about the evaluation, right? Everybody knows the sandwich approach. Everybody knows at the end of the day the positive sides and the negative sides altogether, which I won't really say that it's actually a bad thing. It's a good thing. But how to make sure that when you're doing an evaluation is structured? Okay. As I always say at the end of the day, the logical approach is a logical approach. You will then bring the logical approach to your sandwich as well. You always start with something, oh, I love your speech. Regardless, that will always be the burger. Right? You can't really run away from it. You can't really say at the end of the day, oh, I hate your speech. It's just not a Toastmasters style. Right? So you always say something like a one-liner, oh, I love your speech. And then everybody will clap. It's still a but it's a but. Right? That's when you use the P approach to tomatoes and the lettuce. You still go back to the P approach. What's your first point? What are you trying to say? Right? Why I like your speech. Give me an explanation why. I love your speech because this is the thing altogether. It has a very nice sound, it has a very nice vocal. It's entirely up to you though. Always look at the manual itself to determine what to say. That one, you know, I know, everybody knows, but kind of like sometimes they have forgotten, right? But regardless of this, explain why I like about it. And at the same time, show us an example, especially when you started to use this, and especially when you started to do that. That will be the 2 points that you have to make in order to make it rational. But then you might ask, well, since the positive are like that, then how do we actually go about the negative altogether? What's the past tense of P? What's the past tense of P?
Past tense. P? The letter P?
Yeah, the past tense of P. That's when you add the
D.
There's a reason why I always use this acronym anyway. UEP. I mean, literally, it's just an acronym. Basically, what it means here is point, explanation, example. What's the D? In negatives, you need to demonstrate. This is what I've learned from basically one of my gurus as well when it comes to doing an evaluation. Yes, you can tell me my problem. Yes, you can tell me what is bad about it. Yes, you have explained to me how bad am I. But as from your point of view, even though I know sometimes you might not be the strongest person, show me how. Because as I said since day one, show, not tell. Show me how I can be better, right? And with that, that's why you have a D. D generally means demonstrate. Demonstrate to me how I can be better in it. That's why if you look at all the evaluation that I've done so far, regardless as a normal speaker or also in the context itself, I always use the P altogether. Because at the end of it, you have to show to me, how am I going to be better? If you say my vocal is bad, and you have in a way pinpointed that my vocal is bad, then show me how I can improve to become a better person. Right? Don't just slap me and then say, you figure it out on your own. That's a very parent style. But as a peer, we're not supposed to be doing that, right? So demonstrate to me how it's supposed to be done. Once you're at it, once you're okay with it, then you go back to Colley style, basically the sandwich approach. And that's why I like your speech, yay! And then you clap. So the introduction and the conclusion will go back to day one, right? You have the positive, you start with something, you end with something, and that will be the bang altogether. right? Now, there is a reason why today I told Kelly I will not be using this. It's also because my sharing is a little bit different. Because if I have the PPT and once the PPT is off, you all won't be able to remember, right? But at least with this on now, you will be able to use it later in your table topics and also at the same time in your evaluation altogether, right? Let me just ask a little bit about time, Cyrus.
Oh, 20 minutes is over.
Great, that means I have enough time to do what I want to do. The thing is, Miss Irene here also has said, can we have some example? That's when I say, fine, I will do the example. And that's the reason why sharing is like this, and I'm going to give you something. What I want you to do now is, you have basically gone through what I have gone through. I will just show to you how it's supposed to be done, right? So what I want you to do for now is, say for example, I am giving you this as the topic. Alright, unlocking your life. Say for example, I'm giving this to you as your topic. What I want you to do for now is that I want you to be able to, in a sense, think of an ending. When I say think of an ending, I like to have catchy quotes. And because I'm an English teacher, I always tell my students, please don't just quote the whole thing. Learn how to paraphrase it. Right? So what I want you to do for now is a very simple thing. So say for example, this is your table topic, unlocking your life. Right? Think of a quote or think of something catchy in your head. Right? Once you have that, think of a story that you can bring to talk about it. Start digging up whatever that you have in your brain that is in relation to the topic altogether. Would that be okay? Would that be alright? Great. And if you're going to be okay, then can I have a volunteer? Can I have a volunteer? Which I really don't mind. It's just at least to showcase the whole thing altogether. Can I have a volunteer? Thank you, Stephen. Right, let's give a round of applause to Stephen. So, a very catchy ending, a very catchy phrase altogether, with the story that will tie in well together with it. Alright? Would that be okay, Stephen? Good.
How long?
For 2 minutes, it's a table topic. Great. Before you do that though, can you point someone to be your evaluator? Or ask someone to be your evaluator?
Anyone, please. Am I ready?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. Stephen as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, I don't think you need to go through two, just one positive, one negative.
Right,
So,
right.
Okay.
Timing signal from
I will do the timing signal because Cyrus will probably kill me. Thank you. Never mind, I just pass it to you.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Okay. Ready? Start.
Dad, why you name my name as Key? Because you had a life I gave you. It's a package. And it depends on how you unlock your life. Key is the perfect word for you. It means to unlock, to unpick this lock and find your life, your purpose, and everything. And it has a double meaning in Chinese. Key meaning billions of chance. Billions of chance is waiting for you to unlock. So whether you can be to live your life the way you want, or the way I want you to be, my dear son, you have to find a way. Find it out by yourself. Unlock it. Unpick the lock and express yourself. Place yourself in front of the world to make sure that you do something, mean something to yourself, to me, to everyone else. You don't want to be locked yourself in a package and that's it for the rest of your life. That's not the way to live. To live is a moment. It's for you to find that key to unlock your life. Until then, you're still my son, waiting for your opportunity to find how the world is going to receive you as a useful person or be a better person. And for me, my duty is done, son. I have to leave you now. And good luck. And there my son, my father, passed away. And that is the last word he gave me. The key to unlock your life. Back to you.
Very strong. Thank you. Good. Stephen, you okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Wow. Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Wow.
This was an extremely challenging table topic, and when I was asked could I think of a catchy line or a quote that could start the speech off, I had no idea at all. It was a delight then to see SK come to the stage and treat this in such a memorable and articulate way. It's always a guaranteed way to get the attention of the audience by passing on life lessons. And the way that SK started was without any hesitation at all. He stepped straight into a wonderful story which almost was very definitely up to contest level. Good way to get the audience's attention is to build up a sense of suspense. And the way that he did that was begin in the middle of a dialogue. Dad, how can I live the best? How can I live the best life? And then the pieces of advice his father gave you, it's a package you need to unlock. This fits in very well with his name, a key. And then the fact that was the central part of the speech is that none of our chances are fixed, they are unlimited. And then SK gave lots and lots of examples, the way you want to go express. And then the center of all that was there was a lot of emphasis on what only he could do for himself, but what he could do to other people. And that leads up to the punchline. And the emotion building up during that speech was, it wasn't until the very end of the speech we realized that we're listening to the last conversation between a father and son. And it ended perfectly at that point. And a good speech is always how it makes you feel, not what the person says. And this is an example of a speech that I, for one, will certainly remember. And I've been asked to think of points for improvement. Well, if anyone can think of any, please tell me. Sorry, Estelle.
Thank you for volunteering.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for volunteering. Good, good. So the thing is, at the end of the day, you have to always remember as well. This is what I've learned from also my great guru, who basically said this. Regardless of how good that person is, start scrutinizing. You still have to say something else at the end of the day as well. I like the climax, basically. I like how you twisted the whole thing all together, and at the same time as well. There will be something that you can actually do at the end of the day is the dynamics all together. You know, the way you basically project yourself. That will be something that could be done with it, right? But other than that, really, it was really a very strong speech altogether, right? That's for sure. So remember, P and P. I forgot about one point that I need to mention about the sandwich approach by using this though. Please don't say too much. It's very easy to go overboard because you have so many things to talk about. But at the end of the day, in any evaluation, unless you want to really everybody to go back late, you might want your evaluation to be on time as well. So make sure that it is within the framework that you can actually talk about. Right? So great talking about that. I think that will basically move to the last 5 minutes that I have with you, and that will be the Q&A sessions. Any questions that you want to ask me regarding this very simple sharing altogether tonight?
What about topics that you really blank out, you can't think of something, I mean, totally unrelated, how to deal with it?
You mean in table topics? Just say, for example, they have something that you don't really want to know what to say. You can basically do back whatever that normally what we do. You can actually change the topic altogether. Or what you can basically do is to pinpoint something. And as a table topic, the reason why we do table topics is because we need to learn how to basically move things back into it. That's why it's always good to have a conclusion in mind. But if you can't have a conclusion in mind, that's when you use Derry's approach already. You just start off with the introduction, move on to the whatever that you have to say. Then as your head becomes clearer, that's when you dive into it, right? You might then say, well, I am then digressing out of the thing itself. But it's better than having nothing to say. So that's when you use Derry's approach. Start with whatever that you can, store a little bit of time. If nothing comes out, talk about the point. Because this is the thing about speakers as well, especially when it comes to table topics. Unless it's a story, nobody can actually remember point 1 and point 2. And at the same time, even if it is a story, nobody can actually remember the beginning of how SK started it, all the way to the ending, unless you're the evaluator jotting down every single thing. If not, you will probably understand the last thing altogether that SK has said. You need to use your key, bye. That's all. But that's table topic. So if you don't have anything to say, start it out first. Then once you have the message, start rolling to the message already. And that will make things better. Right? So don't worry, just go. Okay? And that's for sure. Good. Alright.
Kelvin, really good information. Back to evaluation. This is, I look at that as like a format on how to deliver. But during the 7-minute presentation from the speaker, what do you do at that 7 minutes?
What did I do with that?
Yeah, you drop the points, or you think about the overall picture and then think about what you deliver.
As I said, today basically is a sharing session. So yes, I am sharing everything. So what I normally do at the end of the day is that they will always give you a piece of paper, and even if you don't have a piece of paper, you need a piece of paper to do the evaluation. I always like to basically do this. Right? So basically, what I like, what I don't like, I jot down whatever that I like, I jot down whatever that I don't like. This will always be whatever it is. I sometimes take the quote from the speaker. I sometimes take the style of the speaker. I sometimes take whatever it is. Like Holly said, we have to end with the best thing altogether. So that's why the last part of this one will always be for this part altogether. That's why when it comes to jotting down notes, yes, I jot down furiously because I'm used to jotting down a lot of things. But I have a format. So these will always be the things that I want to. Then I pick and choose. Do I want to talk about this, or do I want to talk about this? Do I want to talk about this? Because it's a plus minus thing, because I only have 3 minutes, and then say for example I have 5 positives, then I will then have to just pick 2. Say for example I will have only managed to pick up 1 negative, or I got 0, say for example from Stephen. I have to find something. I really have to start scrutinizing already, because I know at the end of the day I have to find something that I really hate. Sometimes it can be so lame to the extent I just hate your voice. Hey. It can be a fact, because sometimes your voice might be a bit too high in pitch, or sometimes your characters itself is a bit out of place. It's supposed to be a sad moment, you have to use a happy moment, and you don't care about the character. It's something like that altogether. That's when you realize, I have nothing. Then I have to start looking for things already. Right? It might be at the later part though, that's when you start noticing. So if you know that, say for example, sometimes you have speakers that's so bad that you have a lot of this, that one is even harder. It's like, Then you'll be like, okay, I'll find something nice about you regardless. So that basically is what I do as well. So I do separate whatever it is into this T square. So at least I have positive, negatives, and I kind of know if I have nothing, I have to find something.
Yes. Okay.
Alright. Good. Any other question? Yes, no?
One more thing.
Mm.
People like to use quotes, famous quotes.
Mhm.
How you feel about that?
Quotes is fine as long as you are able to use the quotes nicely and it fits nicely into the context altogether as well. And this is a trick. If you ever do want to join the contest, make sure that you have some quotes ready as well. Because you do need those quotes, right? And sometimes it's quotes, you know, what quotes fits into what context. That one you gotta know altogether as well, right? But if you're gonna be just doing a normal table topics like later on after the break itself, even if you don't have a quote, it's fine. But make sure that you end with the thing. I'm gonna end this basically with one last thing for you. I love to do this. Regardless of whatever it is, people like to be told of what to do. You'll be surprised. People do not like to think. That's the reason why I always say at the end of the day, when it comes to regardless, whether it's the table topics or the evaluation, tell them what do you want to tell them, right? And tell them point blank. Okay, back to you, Cyrus. Thank you.